A few years after the fever dream that was the second film, Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 release, solidifying Texas Chainsaw as a player in the horror franchise game. Unfortunately, by the time the slasher subgenre was already rapidly losing relevance. But let's see if this one was a bastion of a better era that sticks out from the many more mediocre genre counterparts of the early 90s, or if its obscurity is warranted. It once again kicks off with a text crawl, this time feeling a lot more creepy and retconning the previous film's events, opening up the possibility of a more serious continuation of the original, which, once again, I don't see the point of, but oh well, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Additionally, the opening credits are quite effective, showing us a haunting montage of Leatherface creating one of his masks, something that's interesting to see in detail for the first time, but will be repeated to the point of becoming a fucking cliche by the end of this franchise's run. We're introduced to our main characters, a somewhat likable couple, and their first lines of dialogue are actually quite good, opening up interesting ideas about violence and revenge that do feel like an attempt to revisit the complex themes of the original Texas Chainsaw. The ghastly sights of decomposing bodies also harken back to the disturbing nature of the first movie, but this film's clearly higher production quality and budget dulled this feeling to a certain extent, sacrificing that gritty vibe for fancy and modernized camera work. This scene where our protagonists put an armadillo out of its misery as well is pretty good, and the fact that the girl can't bring herself to do the deed functions as some effective, if ham-fisted, foreshadowing. Overall, this movie almost develops antithetically to the second one, starting out pretty well and quickly descending into garbage. The first crazy character here is a gas station worker who's somewhat unsettling and creepy, though the acting and atmosphere are definitely less naturally disturbing than either of the previous two entries in the series. It builds up to an exciting chase once they escape from the gas station, and the feeling of being followed is decently portrayed, but it does feel uncharacteristic for this type of film to have so much action right off the bat. The film is almost like a remake of the original, yet it's clear that the pacing is nowhere near as effective. The couple crashes their car, somehow surviving an absurdly brutal accident, and we're introduced to Leatherface in a very lame fashion, plagued by weak acting, plot armor for the main characters, and the eye-roll-inducing car-won't-start trope. At the very least, we're introduced to a new character, a survivalist who goes head-to-head against the psycho from the gas station and really lifts the movie up with his funny quips and likable personality, functioning as an anchor for the audience. This part where he's loading his gun and the guy approaches with his car is great and suspenseful, but we can clearly see the disparity between him and the atrocious acting of this other girl who's randomly thrown into the movie for no reason.
Day before yesterday, I had eaten a fucking rat raw. And some berries that tasted like they've been thrown up once already.
God damn, she sucks, and that's the really noticeable thing. This movie is mostly just in the woods, pervaded by boring, repetitive chases, so they throw random shit at the wall to make it less mundane, even if it ends up hurting the overall film. I mean, look at how the main girl doesn't even show a shred of emotion when she leaves her boyfriend behind to his almost guaranteed capture and death, and yet she suddenly flips her shit when he gets brought to the family's house later on? Like, how did she not realize he was already dead? At least there's this great scene where she meets a little girl who ends up also being a psychotic little monster, and I love the detail of her doll being named Sally, but that doesn't exactly save the whole movie. The acting of the psychos is absolutely awful here, as they either feel too relaxed and not scary whatsoever, or they go overboard and come off as cringy. It's like half the cast got sedated before filming, and the rest had to work really hard to compensate for it. This movie truly doesn't have much at all going for it after the first 20 minutes, but at least once the survivalist guy starts hunting the family, it becomes a lot more fun. It's still absolutely moronically stupid and absurd, but we get some pretty awesome fight scenes too.
I like liver. And onions.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it all up. The final battle in an awesome skull-filled bog is a messy, though satisfying conclusion, especially with how the final girl ends up using a stone against Leatherface, circling back to the armadillo scene from earlier. And there's this jarring, fake-out ending that feels unnecessary, but at least it's somewhat exciting. Basically, this movie has a decent setup, a thrilling but idiotic finale, and the rest is just total fucking garbage. It's not worth watching at all, to be honest, and I can understand why nobody discusses it, because it sucks, and not even in a memorable way. 1.5 out of 5.